Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to Curious Kingdom. Today we are recapping Amazon original series The Invincibles. If you guys find MCU, DCEU repetitive and enjoyed gore like the boys, this recap is just for you. The series opens with two security guards talking to each other. One guard expresses his desire to rebuild his relationship with his son and his willingness to do anything for him. Suddenly, they hear a strange sound, and the supervillains Mauler twins emerge from the ground. As they head towards the White House, they come under fire from large guns. In the ensuing confrontation, one of the guards manages to blind one of the twins with a gunshot. The Guardians of the Globe appear just in time to defend against the twins and save numerous civilians. War Woman takes on the blinded twin while the others focus on evacuating people. Darkwing rescues a woman from a potentially deadly situation, only to be saved by Omni-Man, an alien superhero, when a tank almost crushes him. The Immortal throws some guards in the air, and Omni-Man catches them safely. With the successful evacuation of everyone, the Guardians defeat the twins. Meanwhile, Mark and his mother Debbie sees the news about Omni-Man, his father, fighting the twins to protect the White House. Upon returning home, Nolan, Mark's father, enters the house, kisses Debbie, and Mark complains about discussing such matters in front of their child. The family discusses plans to travel to another country for breakfast, and Nolan tells Mark he will be able to fly to other countries when he develops his powers. Later, Mark walks out of the house frustrated about not having any powers and unsuccessfully attempts to fly, catching the attention of a mailman. At school, he talks to his best friend, William, and witnesses a bully named Todd harassing a girl named Amber. Mark stands up for Amber, but the bully ends up beating him. Amber takes matters into her own hands and sends the bully running away. After work, Mark throws trash away, but to his surprise, it flies an incredibly far distance, making him realize that he has acquired superpowers. He has dinner with his mom, and Nolan returns, where Mark shares the news about his newfound abilities, and Nolan agrees to start training him the following day. As Mark lies in bed, he reminisces about his past, and Nolan reveals that he is an alien called a Viltrumite. Viltrumites visit less advanced planets to offer assistance, and Mark, being half Viltrumite, is expected to gain superhuman abilities during puberty. Mark steps out of the window and begins his attempt at flying. As he soars through the air, he skillfully dodges an approaching airplane. However, as he flies higher, the lack of oxygen causes him to pass out, resulting in a crash landing. The next morning, Nolan encourages Mark to get ready for another flying lesson. During the training, Mark struggles with landing and crashes again. Despite the challenges, Nolan continues teaching Mark how to fly and demonstrates faster movements. Unfortunately, one of Nolan's punches unintentionally hurts Mark, but they persist with their practice. Back home, Debbie becomes concerned about Nolan pushing Mark too hard. Later, at school, Mark faces Todd again, and instead of being deterred by the bully's attack, he surprisingly enjoys the pain and invites Todd to keep punching him. The crowd's attention causes Todd to back off. Motivated by his new identity as a fledgling superhero, Mark dons a costume and begins flying around the city. During one of his patrols, Mark encounters a supervillain fleeing a crime scene and attempts to stop him. A fight ensues, and Nolan arrives to assist. However, Nolan disapproves of Mark's costume, believing he isn't ready yet. Despite the setback, Mark expresses his desire to be like Nolan and the two reconcile. To help Mark refine his superhero persona, Nolan takes him to a tailor shop that specializes in making superhero costumes. Mark rejects the initial designs, longing for something more iconic. The tailor promises to create a costume once Mark settles on a superhero name. At night, while practicing flying, Debbie hears the crashing sounds and confronts Mark. He explains his determination to be like Nolan. But Debbie reminds him that he doesn't need to be the greatest Nolan, he should strive to be the best version of himself. Their heartwarming conversation reaffirms their love for each other. The next morning, Mark and Nolan bond over a game of catch, throwing the ball around the world. Nolan reassures Mark that fear is okay and can even help him become a better hero. The journey of Mark's training and self-discovery as a young superhero is in full swing. Nolan catches the ball and boasts about his invincibility. Mark rushes to the tailor to reveal that he has chosen the superhero name Invincible. With his new suit, he leaps off a crane and takes flight over the city. Upon hearing an explosion, he spots a villain with a laser cannon arm attacking the police. Mark confronts the villain, pummeling him through buildings, and proclaims himself as invincible. Meanwhile, Red rushes on a date with his wife and apologizes for always being preoccupied with work due to his unique time perception abilities. Despite the challenges his abilities present, he expresses his enduring love for her. Suddenly, a distress call interrupts their date, and Red rushes to respond. The Guardians of the Globe receive the distress call and hasten to their headquarters. They were surprised to find Omni-Man there, who turns hostile towards them. He single-handedly overpowers them and brutally murders them all, turning the jolly usual superhero series into a wrong-turn movie. As Omni-Man recovers, the scene is chaotic, and the situation seems dire. In episode 2, a security guard and his son take pictures of Buckingham Palace, where the man jokingly refers to the Queen as an evil old lady. When his son saves him from a falling burger stand, the man is moved by the realization that his son called him Dad, and they share an emotional hug. Meanwhile, several Invincible soldiers infiltrate the Guardians' headquarters and discover the deceased team. A casualty team arrives, and they take Omni-Man away for further examination. Debbie wakes up and notices Nolan's absence. As she prepares for work, Mark assures her not to worry about Nolan. Agents approach them, and Debbie and Mark are taken to an underground facility in the Pentagon. Cecil, Donald's assistant, guides them to Nolan's ward and apologizes for the situation. Cecil reveals that all the Guardians are dead, and Nolan is the sole survivor. The news shocks everyone, and they start investigating the incident. In response to the town's attack, Mark dons his superhero costume and enters the scene. He discovers aliens invading the town but feels uncertain about what to do in the face of the overwhelming situation. More aliens appear and attack Mark, but he finds himself protected by a mysterious shield. Adam Eve arrives with several other superheroes, and they engage in battle with the aliens. Robot gives them instructions as they fight, but they quickly get overwhelmed. Unexpectedly, the aliens begin aging rapidly and flee through a portal to escape the aging process. Mark takes an injured woman to the hospital, where guards point their guns at him. He later visits Nolan's ward and finds solace in Debbie's comforting presence. At school, Mark informs William about his dad being in the hospital. He realizes that Eve is actually Adam Eve and approaches her, grateful for her assistance during the alien invasion. Mark thanks her and the two sit on a rooftop to talk. Eve assures Mark that he will get used to being a hero and invites him to meet her team after school. Cecil and Robot discuss the aliens' mysterious evacuation, and Damien Darkblood, a demon detective, joins the investigation. Cecil allows him to help solve the case. Meanwhile, Amber talks to Mark at school, concerned about Todd's recent attack on him. Mark downplays the situation, and Amber notices him leaving with Eve. Mark and Eve fly around together, racing to their headquarters where they meet Robot and the rest of the team. Robot shares his invention of a device that can alert them of alien invasions. Mark agrees to support the team if needed. In the hospital, Mark takes care of Nolan while Debbie enters the room. She realizes that he is upset and apologizes for not having enough time for him. Later, Mark visits the old woman he saved, and the doctor informs him that her condition is uncertain. William suggests that Mark should date Eve, but Mark believes it's impossible since she is already dating a hero named Rex. Amber approaches William and asks about Mark's relationship status. William mentions that Mark is single and offers to give her his number. Mark and Eve join the other heroes to confront the invading aliens. But the aliens aren't aging rapidly this time. Robot explains that they have devised a way to counteract the time stream effects. As the battle ensues, Mark is targeted and stuck to a machine. The heroes face overwhelming odds, and the aliens' leader threatens Eve. However, Mark breaks free and attacks the leader, but his wristband gets damaged in the process. The team realizes that the wristbands protect them from the time stream. Together, they destroy the aliens' wristbands with Robot's emitted frequency, successfully countering the invaders. The aliens manage to escape, and Mark receives a phone call, prompting him to rush to the hospital where he finds Nolan awake and about to be discharged. As they walk down the hallway, Mark learns that the old lady he saved earlier has unfortunately passed away. Nolan insists on retrieving his destroyed superhero costume from the woman at the front desk. A reporter asks about the missing Guardians, who have been absent for a week, but Mark doesn't have answers. At home, Mark spars with his dad, and Debbie interrupts their training session to discuss the situation with Cecil. They learn that an alien Nolan regularly fights has returned, and Debbie is frustrated because Nolan has only been home for a week after a long absence. Mark suggests that he takes on the alien, and Debbie reluctantly agrees. Mark flies into space to confront the alien, but it attacks him instead of heeding his warning to stay away from Earth. They fight, and Mark realizes that the alien seems to have a timeout. The alien reveals that he is an evaluation officer responsible for assessing the strength of heroes on planets. Mark helps the alien understand that he is on Earth, not Ureth, and the alien apologizes before flying away. Cecil questions Nolan about the attack and the disappearance of the Guardians, but Nolan's memory is unclear. Meanwhile, the aliens attack the city, and people hold a memorial for the missing Guardians. Todd approaches Mark and apologizes for beating him earlier. He gives Mark Amber's phone number before receiving a call about the city's attack. Mark and the other heroes arrive to confront the aliens, but they discover that the aliens are immune to their time stream manipulation. The alien leader grabs Mark during their battle and delivers several powerful punches. Just as the situation becomes dire, Omniman arrives and successfully defeats a majority of the aliens. The team begins evacuating the civilians, and Omniman flies into the portal along with the remaining aliens. During the fight, Mark accidentally calls Omniman Dad, and the team realizes their connection. After returning home, Mark tells his mom about Nolan entering the portal, and she assures him that Nolan will be okay. Later, Nolan attacks the alien city, obliterating it in mere moments. He returns home to his family's warm embrace, but they hear a reporter announcing the tragic news that the Guardians of the Globe are dead. Episode 3 follows the aftermath of the public funeral for the 7 deceased Guardians of the Globe. Omniman delivers a eulogy, but Damien Darkblood becomes suspicious of him and confronts him privately. Meanwhile, Cecil thanks Robot and asks for his help in assembling a new team of Guardians. Later, Omniman returns home and requests pizza while cautioning Mark about the situation. Debbie scolds Mark for being paranoid and expresses concern about the potential strain on their family. Cecil and his team secretly bug Omniman's home to investigate him further. Mark calls Amber to distract himself, and they plan a study date for their finals. Eve returns from the funeral to find Rex cheating on her with Kate and her clones. Robot gathers different superheroes for a trial to become the new Guardians of the Globe. Mark declines the invitation, stating that Omniman wants to train him personally. The trial ends with Adam Eve, Black Samson, Shrinking Ray, Duplicate, Monster Girl, and Rex emerging as the top contenders. During the introductions, Rex's mocking of Monster Girl leads to him getting a satisfying beating from her, much to Eve's satisfaction. However, Eve expresses her reluctance to be on the same team as Kate and leaves the group. Mark follows Eve to console her, and Robot shares their schedules while trying to bring the new team together. However, the heroes have conflicting views, leading to tension among them. The episode sets the stage for the formation of a new team of Guardians, while suspicions surrounding Omni-Man continue to grow. After the heroes walk out on Robot, Monster Girl remains and explains to him that her curse makes her younger every time she transforms, making it difficult to do 3 exercises a day. Later that evening, William tries to help Mark clean up his room in preparation for Amber's study date. Mark is initially reluctant, wanting Amber to see the real him. When Amber arrives, Mark ends up throwing everything out the window to tidy up quickly. They begin getting to know each other, but their conversation gets interrupted when Mark receives a call from Cecil. Cecil tries to convince Mark that being a superhero requires prioritizing responsibilities. He informs Mark about a rogue supervillain at Mount Rushmore and mentions that Eve will be there too. Mark lies to Amber, telling her that he needs to help a family friend, and leaves to respond to the emergency. Mark and Eve head to Mount Rushmore to confront Doc Seismic, who uses an earthquake bracelet to cause havoc. Through teamwork and effort, they manage to subdue him, but he ends up falling into his own death trap. Eve tries to save him while Mark rescues a family in danger. After the incident, Mark attempts to save Doc Seismic, but the villain seems unwilling to be saved and eventually perishes. The heroes believe they won't have to worry about him anymore. Mark returns home and has a conversation with his father, who is proud of him for prioritizing responsibilities as a Viltrumite. Nolan reminds Mark that being a superhero entails certain unique obligations that humans don't have. He advises Mark to change back into his regular clothes and emphasizes the importance of maintaining a balance between his human and superhero lives. In his room, Mark apologizes to Amber, who is already upset with him for keeping her waiting for an hour. Despite her frustration, she reconsidered after recalling that Mark took punches for her during the recent incident. Meanwhile, downstairs, Debbie reminds Nolan about adding protection to the house due to the previous attack. Eve is at her place removing pictures of herself and Rex when she notices a fireworks show outside. She goes out to meet Rex, who tries to apologize and asks for a second chance, but Eve firmly rejects him. She wishes him luck with his news team and flies off to meet Mark. However, she is hurt to see Mark making out with Amber, and she leaves, wishing him well. At the prison, the security guard delivers meals to the prisoners, including the Mahler twins. An unknown benefactor aids their escape, allowing the Mahler clone to break free and release the original Mahler, who admits he is the clone before fleeing. They both escape together, assisted by the mysterious benefactor. Outside, they are attacked by a multi-phase fusion generator. The original Mahler uses his clone as a shield before escaping. The drone watching them disconnects, revealing that Robot is behind the scenes, helping the Mahler twins. The episode delves into the complexities of Mark's personal life, the fallout of Eve and Rex's relationship, and the unfolding mystery surrounding the Mahler twins' escape, with Robot's involvement coming to light. Cecil inquires about the progress in assembling the new Guardians, and Robot reassures him that everything is going smoothly. Meanwhile, back at Omniman's house, Debbie is engrossed in work when her laptop suddenly activates. She is taken aback to see Damien Darkblood standing behind her. Initially alarmed, she soon realizes that Damien is there to discuss her husband and share his suspicions with her. Before Omniman can detect Damien's presence, he vanishes from sight. Omniman notices Debbie's unease and asks if she's okay. She assures him that she's fine and pretends she's just about to head to bed, concealing her encounter with Damien. The episode introduces further intrigue with Damien's investigation and his confrontation with Debbie. The next episode begins with a man witnessing the opening of an ancient tomb in the desert. He enters the tomb and unlocks an ancient power, but finds himself trapped inside as a sandstorm seals the entrance. Meanwhile, Nolan instructs Mark to fly higher as he causes a sandstorm on Earth. They have a race to see who can get home first, flying to the top of Mount Everest and back. In another scene, Debbie talks to Olga, who is frustrated that the GDA hasn't found her husband's killer. Olga advises Debbie to sell her house and reveals her plans to return to her parents. Debbie returns home and works on her computer while drinking wine, avoiding news articles about dark blood. Mark prepares for a date with Amber, and they enjoy a small carnival together. Amber shares her experiences volunteering to help people in need, while Mark tells her about his travels to Everest with his dad. He buys her a rice separator as a gift during their time at the carnival. Nolan confronts Dark Blood and questions why he was in his house. Dark Blood reveals that he's searching for evidence of why Nolan killed the Guardians. The two exchange heated words before Nolan flies out of the room. Meanwhile, the surviving Mahler brother begins forming a giant machine and replicating himself, creating a new Mahler brother robot, and the new Guardians enter the Guardians' headquarters and are excited about their roles. There's tension between Rex and Black Samson, but Cecil intervenes to maintain order. Cecil informs them that the blood stain on the wall will remain until they prove themselves as worthy Guardian. Robot warns Rex not to pursue a relationship with Monster Girl, leading to a brief altercation between them. Robot secretly takes a blood sample from Rex. Cecil receives some information and teleports away. Nolan talks to Debbie about her work, and she gets annoyed when he suggests he can handle everything for her. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a mysterious person at their house. Debbie stops Cecil as he appears unexpectedly in their house. He apologizes and explains that he meant to teleport to their front door. Cecil says he needs their help for a mission to shadow the first ever human exploration on Mars. Nolan initially declines, considering it a waste of his time, but Mark volunteers to go on the mission. Debbie supports Mark's decision, and he agrees to help Cecil. Cecil teleports to a secret safe house where Donald and others discuss the need to investigate Nolan off-world. Cecil shares his intention of sending Mark to Mars to assess his abilities and his heart. Mark talks to Eve at school and confides in her about his situation with Amber. He offers to help Eve if she needs anything. Eve reminds Mark that revealing his superhero identity to a normal person is significant and advises him to be serious about his relationship with Amber. Mark goes to Amber's house, gives her a gift, and informs her that he will be volunteering and unavailable for 2 weeks. He leaves immediately, and as the space shuttle launches, he follows it to Mars. On Mars, Cecil instructs Mark to ensure the astronauts' safe return. Mark hides behind rocks as the astronauts excavate, but he gets bored and falls asleep. Back on Earth, Nolan apologizes to Debbie, admitting he has been worried about Mark's safety and keeping secrets from her. They decide to go on vacation together. While exploring Mars, Mark wakes up to find the astronauts missing. He follows footsteps that suddenly disappear, leading him to underground Martians called Secrets. After defeating them, Mark is captured by the Martians and taken to their king. Mark explains that he needs to return home with the astronauts. The king of the Martians explains to Mark that they are an alien race that corrupts minds and destroys planets. Humans are vulnerable to their influence, but Martians, with their shape-shifting ability, remain unaffected. The king reveals that the astronauts will be killed to prevent their return to Earth with the corrupted knowledge. Mark understands the gravity of the situation, and despite the Martians' pursuit, he manages to carry the astronauts to their ship, and they safely escape Mars. Back on Earth, Mark returns home, but before he enters, he overhears a strange noise from the house. He realizes his parents were making love but decides not to make a big deal out of it. The next day at school, he gives Amber the Mars rock as a special souvenir without revealing its true origin. In the Pentagon, Cecil and his guards confront Dark Blood, intending to use an exorcism circle to banish him back to hell. Dark Blood claims he destroyed the book needed to complete the spell, but Cecil's men use technology to decipher the missing words. They send Dark Blood back to hell, as he was interfering with Cecil's investigation into the Guardians' deaths. Debbie goes to Olga's house, where potential buyers arrive to inspect it. Meanwhile, Robot presents a blood sample to Ruddy Connors, a deformed individual who is in his original form. In Episode 5, a super-powered man named Titan emerges with the ability to turn his skin into stone. He rushes towards a group of men in a warehouse who are involved in illegal activities. Despite their attempts to shoot him, Titan remains unharmed and eliminates the men one by one. Their leader gets trapped under a forklift, and Titan deals with him by deflecting a bullet back at him. He then delivers a message to a boy present there, warning him not to intrude on his territory. Later, Mark, struggling to balance his superhero life with his personal life, leaves Amber waiting and faces some villains. Titan continues his actions, setting a building on fire, but surprisingly shows a compassionate side when he helps a resident by providing money and an address for affordable accommodation. Meanwhile, Nolan, Mark's mentor, teaches him how to interrogate villains, but Mark remains committed to not missing dinner with Amber and her mom. He manages to handle the villains while keeping his promise to Amber. At the same time, Titan confronts a man who owes him debts, showing a sense of justice mixed with intimidation. He steals a super chip from a lab, displaying his prowess, and brings it to a crime boss named Machine Head to clear his debt. However, Machine Head doesn't release him from service, using his family as leverage. Nolan continues to train Mark, even in redirecting asteroids. Later, Mark arrives late for dinner with Amber and fails to tell her the truth about his powers, leading to an argument. Titan, in contrast, surprises his daughter with ice cream but upsets his wife, who realizes he is still working for Machine Head. Mark flies around the city, considering whether to help Titan or not. Meanwhile, Debbie, Mark's mother, finds Dark Blood's notebook and learns about Nolan's dark secrets. She recalls Nolan's interest in collecting his costume after the Guardians' deaths. Eve, a superhero, argues with her parents about her love life and her desire to remain a hero despite their objections. Titan seeks Mark's help, explaining that he owes money to Machine Head, leaving him no choice but to work for him. Mark learns more about Machine Head's villainous activities, and Titan reveals that he borrowed the money for a noble cause. Mark returns home and contemplates whether to assist Titan, but his father advises him to prioritize saving the world and dismisses Titan as unworthy of help. Debbie stands firmly by Mark's side, stating that no one is beneath being saved. After the new Guardians return to their base and celebrate their successful day, Black Samson brings up their reckless behavior, which resulted in civilian injuries. Tempers flare as they discuss their efforts, and they leave in annoyance. Debbie confronts Nolan about his earlier statement to Mark, questioning why he would discourage him from saving people. Nolan apologizes, explaining that he wants to protect Mark from being misled by the wrong individuals. Meanwhile, Mark and Eve leave school, and she emphasizes the importance of Mark being able to locate places from the air. Later, Amber reminds Mark about their volunteer work at a shelter, and he promises to be there. However, he rushes away after meeting Titan, who shares his plan to capture Machine Head and hand him over to the GDA. The Mahler twin completes the cloning process, leading to an argument about who the original is, and Robot intervenes, seeking their expertise in cloning. Debbie searches for Nolan's costume in their house, but she can't find it. As she's about to give up, she spots it on a curtain and hides it just before Nolan returns. Meanwhile, Mark and Titan break into Machine Head's penthouse and face numerous villains. Eve helps Amber in the kitchen, but they grow concerned as Mark is yet to arrive. During the battle with the villains, Mark is overwhelmed and knocked out of the building. Nolan watches from a distance but refrains from intervening. During the intense battle, Battle Beast delivers a devastating blow to Mark, tearing a hole in his stomach. Black Samson attempts to fight back, but his arm gets broken and he's tossed around. Monster Girl joins the fight but is quickly overpowered, as Battle Beast smashes her face with rocks. Fueled by anger and determination, the rest of the team rallies and fights back against the remaining villains. Working together, they manage to defeat most of the villains. Battle Beast, feeling he can't fight opponents he considers beneath him, decides to retreat. Meanwhile, Machine Head tries to escape via teleportation, but Rex intercepts him and knocks him down. Cecil and the medic arrive on the scene, and Donald, the medic, expresses concern that Mark may not survive his injuries. They urgently rush the injured heroes, including Mark, to the hospital. The gravity of the situation becomes apparent as the heroes' relatives are informed of the critical condition they are in. Eve receives a call about Mark's condition and comes to the realization that he is in a life-threatening state. Eve explains to Amber that she has to leave, expressing that Mark loves her deeply but may not always be able to demonstrate it due to his superhero responsibility. Meanwhile, Titan goes back to the penthouse and brings his family with him, taking control of Machine Head's criminal empire. Donald visits a lab where he meets a scientist who reveals that they have exhausted all efforts, but Viltrumite cells show remarkable resistance to destruction. In Episode 6, on a college campus, a drunk boy tries to flirt with some girls, but they ignore him and walk away. Suddenly, a strange person appears and injects the boy, rendering him unconscious. He wakes up in a mysterious room, taunting the man, whom he calls a nerd for his scientific talk. However, he soon realizes he's restrained to a table and is horrified to see corpses hanging on hooks. The man reveals that he has replaced the boy's hand with a cybernetic arm and proceeds to remove his vocal tract, claiming he's going to make him beautiful. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, the medic rushes in with Mark and the others, starting their treatment. Monster Girl initially resists, but Robot steps in, having studied her physiology, and aids the doctors. Black Samson causes a temporary power outage when they work on him. Debbie and Nolan arrive at the hospital, and Debbie is upset about Mark's condition. Later, Mark regains consciousness and meets his parents, learning he has been unconscious for 6 days. He panics, as he was supposed to meet Amber. Eve reassures him, explaining that she covered for him by telling Amber he was hit by a bus. Nolan speaks to Cecil about Darkblood's confession, offering to help with the interrogation, but Cecil declines the offer. Nolan is asked if he knew about Mark's plans to go against Machine Head, and he admits instructing Mark not to. Cecil points out that Mark is part human, and human kids can be rebellious. After being discharged from the hospital, Mark goes to Amber's place to apologize and asks if they can restart their relationship, which she agrees to. Mark talks to his friend William at school, realizing they haven't spent much time together. William tells him he's going to visit Rick, the boy he likes, at Upstate University. Mark sees a poster and asks William if he and Amber can join. Back at home, Mark packs some belongings and asks Eve if she wants to join their trip, but she declines, stating she's skipping college to help people in her own way. Mark supports her decision, and his mom informs him that William and Amber have arrived. Mark, Amber, and William start their journey to Upstate University while Debbie leaves the house. Nolan offers to accompany her, but she reminds him of his work. Nolan becomes suspicious and checks his bag, realizing his superhero costume is missing. At Upstate University, they meet Rick, who helps them with their luggage and has prepared his dorm room for their visit. As William walks, he gets excited, his cheeks flushed with anticipation. Eve packs her belongings, and her mom tries to convince her not to leave, expressing concerns about her safety and her dad's disapproval. Eve asserts that she needs to help people but can't do it from their house due to her dad's disapproval. She uses her powers to block the door as her dad yells, and she leaves through the back. At Upstate University, Rick leads William and the others to attend his biology class. The professor discusses human susceptibility to diseases in old age, and a student named Sinclair makes controversial remarks about humans needing improvements like machines. Amber challenges Sinclair's statement, and he approaches her aggressively, but Rick intervenes. The professor asks Sinclair to leave the class if he isn't interested. Meanwhile, Eve flies to the woods and creates a treehouse with a stunning view. Mark and the rest explore the campus, and William suggests he and Rick go elsewhere while Mark and Amber explore together. They have a fun time, and while sitting on a bench, Mark expresses his desire to attend the university with Amber, and they both agree. As they are about to kiss, a strange creature called a reanimate attacks, causing chaos. Amber calls for Mark, but he seems to have disappeared. Mark returns to stop the reanimate, and William realizes that Mark is a superhero. Mark struggles to defeat the reanimate until he shows it its reflection, leading to its self-destruction. Amber is upset that Mark disappeared during the crisis, and she believes he abandoned them. She walks away, while Robot's drone arrives at the hospital with a flower and a molecule that could help save Monster Girl. It interacts with Black Samson, who is recovering. Debbie meets with Art, an investigator, and examines Nolan's bloodied suit. They find particles from the other Guardians on the suit, confirming that Nolan attacked them first. Debbie and Art realize that Nolan is the one responsible for the Guardians' deaths but decide not to disclose this information. Unbeknownst to them, Nolan observes the building from outside. Back at Rick's room, Amber refuses to stay in the same room as Mark, expressing her frustration. Rick offers to get some drinks, and while he's gone, William talks to Mark about being invincible and asks to be flown around. Mark obliges but returns quickly. Eve uses her powers to help people, saving hikers from an avalanche and assisting farmers with their crops. Later, Robot talks to the Mueller twins about their progress on a certain job. They request payment, but Robot declines, stating he will pay them when the job is complete. After Amber takes a shower, a boy named Kyle hands her a flyer and invites her to a party. Rick calls William over the phone, but the line suddenly cuts off. William tells Mark about Rick being in trouble, but Mark is preoccupied with going after Amber. Undeterred, William decides to search for Rick himself and follows some trails that lead to the sewer. Later that night, Nolan meets Art on the roof with some beer. They talk, and Art seems nervous. Nolan expresses that he just wants to know if they're still friends and offers him another beer bottle. Meanwhile, Mark arrives at the party and sees Amber talking to Kyle. During their conversation, Amber discovers that Kyle has a girlfriend who will join the school soon. She realizes that Kyle is not her type, being more of a typical frat boy. As the night progresses, William calls Mark, informing him that he is in trouble. The reanimate captures William and takes him to a lab in the sewer, where he encounters Sinclair. Mark enters the sewer in search of William, only to be attacked by several reanimates. The reanimate reveals itself to be Rick, and William reminds him of their good times together, helping Rick regain control by removing the control box in his head. Together, they defeat the reanimate and Sinclair, with Mark punching Sinclair to prevent his escape. Cecil and the medic arrive, taking Sinclair and the reanimate into custody. Cecil praises Sinclair's impressive technology, but apologizes to Mark for the damages caused during the incident. Mark and William return home, where William breaks down in tears. Mark attempts to talk to Amber, thinking she's asleep, but leaves when he sees her not responding. Eve returns to her treehouse, feeling thrilled about the good deeds she performed during the day. Meanwhile, Nolan returns home to find Debbie waiting for him. She confronts him about killing the Guardians and throws a bottle at him, voicing her anger. Nolan, feeling frustrated, punches a hole in the wall and sits down. In another scene, some kids attempt to dig up the Immortal's grave, but the Mahler brothers arrive and startle them. Debbie wakes up and notices Nolan's absence from their bed. As she walks downstairs, she discovers the hole in the wall. In episode 7, Nolan stands by a bloodied suit lying on a table. William drives, and Mark attempts to talk to Amber, but she tunes him out by turning up the volume. Eve wakes up, determined to continue helping the world in her own way. Debbie confronts Nolan about keeping the bloodied suit. Nolan admits he used it to get rid of dark blood and intended for her to find it. She demands to know why he killed the Guardians, and he claims he had no choice. Debbie is upset that he continues to lie to her and orders him to leave the house. In anger, Nolan bursts through the roof and flies away. Debbie tries to reach Mark but can't get through. Donald and some men appear, asking Debbie to follow them for her safety. Meanwhile, William drops off Amber, and Mark tries to talk to her. She shuts the door and goes to her room. Mark flies in, revealing that he is invincible. Amber confesses she already knew he was a superhero but is upset that he didn't tell her and treated her like a fool. She asks for some time alone, and Mark flies away. Monster Girl returns to the Guardian headquarters, finding it dark and empty. The rest of the team surprises her and welcomes her back from the hospital. Robot talks to her but malfunctions, causing some fright among the team. The Mahler twins' hideout receives a strange truck, and when they try to stop the driver, they realize it's a hologram. Robot and Rudolph emerge from the truck, and the twins realize that Rudolph is controlling Robot. They show Rudolph the clone, and he approves. He gives them a neural transmitter and the control collar schematics, promising to hand them over once they complete the job. The twins express mistrust, leading Rudolph to destroy Robot. They prepare to insert the neural transmitter into the clone. William expresses his concerns to Mark, blaming him for Rick's situation. Mark apologizes for his mistakes and admits he hasn't been a good friend. He feels he needs to talk to someone else and steps out of the car. Debbie, accompanied by Donald, meets Cecil in the Pentagon. Cecil reveals they knew Nolan killed the Guardians and wants to understand why and how to stop him. He asks her about Mark's whereabouts, believing he is the only one who can stand against Nolan. Meanwhile, Nolan stands on a mountain, trying to figure out how to tell Mark the truth about his actions but struggles to do so. He eventually flies away. The Mahler twins remove Rudolph from containment and inform him they are making a copy of his mind to put in the clone. Rudolph agrees, and the process begins. However, they realize his brain is abnormal and recalibrate the machine. The copying is successful, but the machine breaks down. Rudolph wakes up in the young clone body and contemplates returning the deformed body to the tank. But the clone refuses, stating he wants to die. Rudolph exposes the clone to oxygen, leading to his death. Rudolph provides the twins with the collar schematics but warns that they may go to prison. Nolan returns home but doesn't find Mark. He encounters an agent and kills him, then proceeds to eliminate several more agents. Donald appears, and Nolan realizes they have been spying on his house. Donald distracts Nolan, giving some workers time to evacuate. Nolan kills Donald by grabbing his spine, and as the building explodes, he flies away, unaffected by the blast. Cecil questions Debbie about Mark's whereabouts, but she claims she doesn't know. Meanwhile, Eve flies through the woods, and Mark meets up with her. The Mueller twins dodge attacks from Rudolph and his giant robot, retaliating with their own weapon. Cecil contacts the twins and instructs them to return to headquarters. While William is driving, he suddenly stops as Nolan lands in front of him. Nolan asks about Mark's location, and William tells him that Mark went to find Eve in the woods before Nolan flies away. The Guardians arrive at headquarters, and Rudolph reveals himself as the person they know as Robot, much to Rex's surprise. Cecil and Debbie watch as Nolan heads towards Mark and Eve, and they know they need to buy some time. Cecil's ordered to bring down a hammer as he searches for Mark. An orbiting satellite shoots a laser at Nolan, but it doesn't affect him. He destroys the satellite and continues his search, while Mark talks to Eve in the woods, and she apologizes for their breakup. Nolan faces attacks from Cecil and the others, Cecile also takes help from Sinclair. Using his cybernetics reanimates to attack Nolan. Nolan rips them apart one by one. Failing, Cecile has to teleport back to Pentagon. The Kraken emerges and attacks Nolan, who claims to have defeated it in the past. But Cecile informs him that they made it stronger. The Kraken knocks down Nolan, and Mark and Eve arrive to help. Mark takes on the Kraken while Nolan continues to fight. Meanwhile, the Muller twins attempt to revive the Immortal using the control collar, but it doesn't work, and he flies away angrily in search of Nolan. Debbie informs Eve of their situation, and Cecile instructs her to return to the Guardians' headquarters. Cecile receives information that someone is flying towards Nolan. The Immortal arrives and attacks Nolan, causing shock and confusion among the people watching on news helicopters. As the fight between Nolan and the Immortal intensifies, Mark intervenes by knocking the Kraken down using power lines. The battle between Nolan and the Immortal continues, and it ends with Nolan killing the Immortal in a brutal confrontation. The world watches in astonishment, and Nolan tells Mark that they need to have a conversation. Nolan's revelation that they need to talk comes as a shocking surprise to Mark, leading him to suspect someone else is controlling Nolan. In reaction, Mark impulsively punches Nolan and attempts to uncover the truth behind his behavior. However, Nolan stops him and pushes him away before disclosing the existence of Viltrum, a civilization that once thrived but eliminated the weaker members, resulting in a significant reduction in their population. Determined to be the sole civilization in the galaxy, the Viltrumites expanded across conquered planets, leading them to dispatch individuals, including Nolan, to weaken the defenses of these planets. Nolan, arriving on Earth, falls in love with Debbie, complicating his loyalty to the Viltrumites and his secret mission. Learning of Nolan's deceit, Mark becomes furious, refusing to let his friends be enslaved for the Viltrumite cause. Nolan reveals his longevity and the ephemeral nature of human life, prompting Mark's resolve to stop him. However, despite his attempts to intervene, Mark is overpowered by Nolan, who proceeds to attack him relentlessly. With the help of jets sent by Cecile, Mark is given a chance to devise a plan, but the encounter causes devastation, leading to civilian casualties. Throughout the conflict, the Guardians and others bear witness to the destructive spectacle. As the battle rages on, Mark confronts Nolan, imploring him to reconsider his actions. However, Nolan remains steadfast in his mission, causing Mark to feel helpless and disheartened. Memories of their past connection as father and son briefly touch Nolan's conscience, but the fight continues. Eventually, Nolan comes to a realization, feeling remorse for his actions, but the damage is already done. He flies away in sorrow, while Mark is taken to the hospital for recovery. In the aftermath of the catastrophic event, the world is in shock, and the Guardians aid in rescue efforts. Meanwhile, the Muller twins are apprehended, and Cecile meets with Debbie, promising to protect their identities and seeking forgiveness for the ordeal. After the intense battle and Nolan's departure, the Guardians return to their headquarters. Rex wants to clean the bloodstain on the wall, but Black Samson stops him. This leads to some tension within the team, but they eventually come together and clean the stain, attempting to return to normalcy. However, the fallout from Nolan's betrayal weighs heavily on some of them. William visits Mark's house and discovers a pile of letters and newspapers, indicating that something is amiss. When Eve arrives, William accidentally reveals that Mark is Invincible, the superhero identity. Eve already knew this secret and is Mark wakes up, and Cecile meets with him to discuss Nolan's whereabouts. Cecile takes Mark to a peculiar room completely white, where he reveals that Debbie witnessed everything and deserved to know the truth. Cecile's men turn on the colors, and Mark is informed that the chemical in the water prevents others from seeing the room. Cecile asks Mark to take Nolan's place as the strongest hero, giving him time to think about the proposition. Mark returns home with Debbie, and Cecile advises them to contact him if they need anything. Debbie goes to her room, and Mark opens the fridge, intending to discuss the need for food. However, he finds Debbie crying. Meanwhile, Amber visits Mark's house and shares a kiss with him, expressing her sympathy for what he's going through. William and Eve also arrive at the house. In a restaurant, Mark opens up about his mother's struggles with Nolan's departure and his feelings of emptiness. His friends try to console him. Mark receives a call from Cecile, who informs him that someone is flying to Earth. He asks Mark to find out the identity of this individual, and Mark obliges. On the moon, Mark encounters the alien he fought in the past, who reveals that Earth has a Viltrumite on it. Mark admits he is aware of this and shares the entire story with the alien. The alien realizes that Mark is a Viltrumite, but he doesn't work with the others. He apologizes for the conflict between Mark and Nolan and warns that more Viltrumites will come to attack Earth. Mark vows to be prepared for the impending threat. As Mark contemplates his preparations for the Viltrumite invasion, various events unfold on Earth. Mind-controlling squids have attacked and overpowered the Martians living on Mars. The aliens whom Omni-Man defeated have regrouped and planning for another attack. The Mahler twins are imprisoned. While Battle Beast continues his search for worthy opponents to fight, Titan maintains his position as the criminal boss, running multiple crime operations. When Mark mentions that he intends to finish high school as part of his plans, the alien gives a sarcastic look, bringing Season 1 to an end. That's all for today, folks. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more such content. Curious Knight signing off. Stay safe, stay curious.